Okay, my computer is showing now that the time is 1 o'clock p.m. So we will go ahead and get started. We want to be a good steward of our time so everyone will have time to complete this session and be on time to the next one at 2 o'clock. This session is entitled Connecting Federal Programs to District Strategic and School Renewal Plans. My name is Karen Cook, and you see on the screen there, Laura McNair was going to be presenting with me today, but Laura is under the weather, so she has designated Nicole Ivory to jump in and pitch hit. So I appreciate Nicole being on the call as well. So if you hear another voice, that's Nicole Ivory. Before we get started, I just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. To reduce distractions, we ask that you do a few things for us. If you can make sure your computer is on mute, and also any cell phones, in case you aren't on mute, that phone's in the background and it rings or something like that. We don't want to hear it and have it interrupt the presentation. So just make sure that you're on mute. We ask that you turn your camera function off. It just helps our technology. And also, if you have any questions, if you will type those into the chat box, and you see there's a red arrow there pointing to the icon that you would use to access the chat box. And members of our team will be monitoring that and will alert me and Nicole when there is something in the chat box. And just to remind everyone, you may have heard us say it a moment ago, but this session is being recorded, just so you're aware. Okay. The South Carolina Department of Education, we've had this idea of a one plan, and it's not really news to any of you who have been in your roles for at least probably 2 to 3 years. This is an idea that we have been talking about. We're looking to roll all federal and state common requirements into what we call the one plan. But now some of you may be newer to your roles and haven't heard us use this terminology, so I want to provide some background. On the federal side, there's funding applications for each of the title programs. And then there's also required documents related to those applications. And also on the state side for different programs, there's applications. And again, there's certain resources and related documents that go with those. But all of these different things from the state side and the federal side, they're all feeding into the district strategic and school renewal plans. So with this idea of the one plan, what we're hoping to achieve, our goals are to have one planning system that will consolidate all the planning and application processes. And we want it to reduce duplication and effort on your end, you guys in the schools and the districts. We want the single plan to be in one place for the school and the district, so you're not having to go and look in different applications. We're wanting to have a single plan that would allow for a greater depth of emphasis on planning and accountability. And we want to have this plan reduce the burden on you guys. We realize there's a lot of duplication of efforts right now. And so we're hoping once we get this one plan up and running, it will streamline things for you all and will be quite the bigger that it is right now. We're not quite there yet with our technology. We do not have this one plan just yet, but that is where we're getting to. And so we want to go ahead and start having everyone begin the shift of mindset. So we are looking to get our technology there so that we will have just the district strategic and school renewal plan that will be the driving force, and everything will plug into that. All state programs and all federal programs will all plug into that overarching plan. So let's look a little bit more at what's required. On the state side, all districts are required to have a district strategic plan. And then all schools are required to have a school renewal plan. And these operate on a 5-year cycle. And in year 1 is an initial plan. And then there's 4 updates that are submitted annually. So that makes the 5-year cycle, and then you start back over with an initial plan. And submissions of these initial plans or updates, they're always due every year on April 30th. And in that plan, there's certain elements. There's the comprehensive needs assessment, there's performance goals, interim performance goals, strategies and action plans, evaluation of those strategies, evidence of comprehensive consensus building, and then there's assurances. On the federal side, there's some of the same requirements. There's for each title program that it requires that the district and sometimes the school have a plan for that title program. A lot of the state programs and initiatives are the same way. Examples of that would be like Read to Succeed. Every district has to have a Read to Succeed plan, Gifted and Talented, proficiency plans, those types of things. So everything requires a plan. And even on the federal side, a lot of those things are asking for comprehensive needs assessment, goals, strategies and action plans, evaluations, stakeholder input, assurances. So you see there's lots of duplication. So what we're wanting to do is create, like I said earlier, the district strategic plan and the school renewal plan as the driver of the train. We want that to be the main plan that everything plugs into, so there's not as much duplication between the federal programs people, anybody in your instructional team who might be working on the district strategic school renewal plans. So eventually we want to get to the point where state and federal requirements are all plugged into this plan. But then there's also program specific pieces, and we want to have everybody planning together, but then we also want to be able to eventually link in the financial side. You know, we get a lot of questions this day and age about, well, when are GEMS and GAPS going to be able to talk to each other? We're not there yet, but we're hoping to be. That is on the long range plan. So we'll get to that point eventually. But we want this to turn into something beyond just compliance and checking the box. We don't want it to be just, we're supposed to submit a strategic plan, we're supposed to submit a school renewal plan, check, done, move on. We want to be more than just being compliant. We're trying to move beyond that, and we want to get to a point where it's a coordinated effort between everyone that's working in the district towards the same common goal. So since we're going to have the district strategic plan and school renewal plans be the driver of the train, we're going to go now into a little more detail about the district strategic school renewal plans. Some of you out there, maybe you do have a seat at the table and you're involved in this, so this may just be like review for you. Maybe some of you were at a school level and used to be really involved in school renewal plans, but you've moved to the district office and you've kind of gotten away from it for a little while. So maybe this will just be a review for you. But we're just going to kind of go through the different elements of the strategic plan. And Nicole, feel free to jump in when you want to. And if anybody has any questions, you can put those in the chat box as we move along. I'll stop right here. Are there any questions to this point?
Well, Karen, I do want to add just a bit to what your introductory statement has been.
Go ahead.
I want to give the group some considerations to contemplate right now. You know, we understand that one plan is not up and running, but even still, there are some ways in which you can start integrating the state and the federal components, even in your district strategic and school renewal plans at this moment. So during the course of this presentation, I want you to just to kind of think about what is it, you know, that you've learned even through the course of your job or even through the training earlier this morning, and how we can actually take some of those federal components and put it into the plans right now, and knowing that a more complicated, more comprehensive, maybe that should be a better word, a more comprehensive application is coming soon. I know that speaking as a person who just solely worked with the district strategic plans, I know that a few years ago when we first started integrating the idea of having the federal components into it, once I realized, you know, the similarities, I had that aha moment. And I was almost upset. It's like, I wish I would have known this earlier. It could have made everybody's life easier. So we hope that in the course of this training and in the future, that you will also have those aha moments and see how these plans can be integrated now and even more later.
Great, thank you, Nicole. And since I'm presenting, I cannot see the chat box, so I'm going to rely on some of you to just tell me if there's a a comment in the chat box, just feel free to jump in and tell me.
Karen, I have it open. I'm looking at
Okay.
it.
All right, great, thank you. So you just jump in and let me know if there's something that pops up. Okay, we're going to start talking through the different elements of the district strategic school renewal plans. First is the needs assessment data page, and this is just strictly the data. On this page, a lot of districts are going to list a link to the South Carolina School Report Card from the SCDE website. Some districts want to stop there, but we always ask for a little bit more information. Beyond that, we want to also see any data that the district may have from formative and summative assessments that may not be found on the school report card. And then once you have that data, that, like I said, that's just strictly data. Over in the executive summary of the needs assessment, this is where we want the district and the schools to start looking at the data, interpreting the data, and identifying what are their needs and where they want to set goals. So in the executive summary, you're going to use the needs that are identified in your Title I Comprehensive Needs Assessment. You're going to start turning those into the executive summary. For our purposes, we need, as you're starting to take those needs and wants and kind of turn them into what are going to be our goals, which we're going to get to next, there needs to be 3 areas that we need everybody to touch on. We need everybody to have at least something that touches on student achievement. We need to touch on teacher and administrator quality. And we also need to touch on school climate. And in this narrative part right here, and this is a narrative, it's not just data, it's not just numbers like it's in the previous section. This is more of a narrative where you're starting to explain. If there's any goals that the district wants to set in this section, if the baseline is already at 100%, that's not considered a need. And the district and the school, they need to choose another area of concern to focus on. So if you're thinking that you want to maybe set a goal of we're going to maintain 100% of our staff is properly certified for their teaching assignment. Well, it's already at 100%. It's not really a goal that you want to set. Nicole, do you have anything to add at this point about either the data or the executive summary? Okay, jump in.
So one of the things you have to keep in mind that when you're looking at the data section, you're looking at the executive summary of needs assessment, and when you're looking at performance goal, all 3 of those items are interrelated, and so there has to be a correlation. You know, like Karen talked about your data, we know that everybody's required to use that link, and we ask that if you are going to add additional data, that you have to have the mindset is that that data is going to be discussed in that executive summary of needs assessment, which then lead to a performance goal. So your data is there saying that it needs to validate that need. The purpose of your strategic plans are to improve over something that needs a particular area that needs improvement. So that data validates the need or it substantiates a downward trend. So you're going to look at that data, the data that's in that plan, you're going to go to your executive summary of needs assessment. That executive summary of needs assessment needs to focus on what it is you want to accomplish. What is it that you're focusing on? What is that need? And a lot of the times when we look at the strategic plans and the school renewal plans, there's a lot of narrative, but it's not necessarily a lot of focus on what it is that needs to be improved. And so one of the things we would like for you to do was to put a little bit more emphasis on what is that area of focus? What is it you're trying to overcome? And then when you get to the performance goal, we want to see that correlation again. This is my data. This is my executive summary saying our school, our district is going to focus on these particular areas of concern. And then when I go to your performance goal, I'm going to see this is what these are objectives over the life cycle of that strategic plan. So sometimes it's not always clear correlation when we look into that plan. So we want to just take this opportunity to emphasize to you to always keep that in mind when you're writing your strategic plan.
Okay, and Nicole went ahead and alluded to performance goals. That's our next slide here. As I mentioned, we want to make sure that we've got at least one goal in the plan for student achievement, teacher and administrator quality, and school climate. At the district level, we're also going to ask that gifted and talented be addressed from an academic standpoint, and then also from an artistic / social emotional standpoint.
Okay, Karen, we have a question in the chat box from Vanessa. So she said, we've identified a district goal based upon our own needs. Can this be added, or would you rather us stick to the 3: student achievement, teacher, administrative quality, and school climate? No, your district goals can be listed as a separate district goal. The law requires the student achievement, teacher, administrative quality, and school climate. But I think one of the things we wanted to get away from is compartmentalizing the strategic plans. And so just like even in the lecture with Tiffany earlier this morning, you know, when she talked about like the Title IV plans, you know, for example, the safe and healthy schools, and she listed things that would be considered under the category safe and healthy schools: mental health, drug prevention, physical nutrition. Well, that sounds exactly like school climate. So, you know, there's well-rounded education. What is that but student achievement? You know, there's effective use of technology. That can be your teacher administrator quality goals. So, so to answer your question, Vanessa, yes and no. You could use a separate district, that district goal, or you can integrate that district goal into, you know, what's traditionally known as our student achievement, teacher administrative quality, and school climate. I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. And on this next slide, I'd gone ahead and turned it to this one. Some of you may have been reading as Nicole was answering, but these are just some examples of performance goals, how you can turn your Title I needs into a performance goal, and how those may be worded. Students will demonstrate proficiency in text-dependent analysis. That, you know, could roll up under student achievement. Providing teachers with additional instructional resources, such as manipulatives and applications, to increase rigor and student achievement. Providing your teachers with in-depth professional development, that would roll up under teacher quality. Again, professional development could roll up under your teacher quality. Reducing class size. Implementing new techniques that aid in teaching and reinforcing character education. So these are all items that can turn into performance goals in your district strategic school renewal plan, but you can see the direct correlation to how Title I can jump in and help, and can help fund some of those activities, and can also be activities in the Title I plan and other title programs, as Nicole mentioned, maybe Title IV or other titles. Nicole, is there anything else you want to add right here before I move on?
Well, I think that Vanessa may have also commented about the strategic plan may encompass hundreds of pages. So would you rather a district use a narrative that is related to the specific title fund? So a couple of things. Your strategic plan should never be hundreds of pages. I mean, one of the things we've tried to relay over the years, first of all, with your data, if you only use the report card link and you add additional data for those items that may not be found on the report card, and a lot of times we've seen schools and districts have between 10 and literally 100 pages worth of data. That's not what we want. The whole purpose of that data section is to lay that foundation for that executive summary and for your performance goals. So there really is no rationale for your strategic plan to be that extensive. So one of the things we also want you to keep in mind is the whole purpose of this is to start thinking about those federal programs and using those narratives for your federal programs in your strategic plan training. I mean, in your strategic plans and your school renewal plans. You know, when we've had trainings over the years, we've looked at plans over the years, and one of the things that we found looking at some of the narratives in the federal programs, exactly what we've been looking for in the district strategic and school renewal plans. So we want to convey that if you can put that mindset, you can take those plans, those federal plans, and put those same narratives, in essence, you kill two birds with one stone. And so part of that one plan we want to convey is that you work smarter, not harder. And so by using that information, using those federal programs, you already have met what we require in the district strategic and school renewal plans. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. Okay. And these performance goals, we ask that they be written as SMART goals. And just remember that SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. And so we give an example there on the third bullet. If a district was writing an initial plan now, 2025-26 would be the end of the 5-year cycle. So the goal is by 25-26, 60% of third graders will score meets or exceeds on the SC Ready, ELA, and math as measured by winter and spring MAP scores and South Carolina report card scores. So that would be a performance goal that's written as a SMART goal. But then beyond the 5-year goal, you're going to want to have interim performance goals. So the interim performance goals is breaking down the 5 years, and it's looking what we want to achieve year by year. So if you're using data and you're a mathematically minded person, you want to think of that as being 1/5 of the 5-year performance data. So an example would be like if I started with a baseline of 40% and I want to attain 60% by the end of my 5-year cycle. We want 60% of those third graders scoring meets or exceeds. So my interim goal, if I'm starting at 40%, for next year, my goal might just be 44%. I'm just wanting to get the scores up 4%. So then you want to just keep inching up year by year over the 5-year span to get to 60%.
Yeah, I want to jump in before you move forward.
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to talk about the performance goals a bit. I think the districts overall as a whole have really improved in their performance goals, making sure they're SMART goals. And I think what we want you to take away from today's presentation is that you can go, even farther. I took a look at Title IV Part A plan from Aiken. And one of the things that they indicated under well-rounded education, they wanted to improve world language opportunities and fund more teachers and curriculum at the elementary level. That was put into, that Title IV plan. That plan could have literally just been cut and paste and put in the district strategic plan. So, that's just an example of the kind of thinking we want you to do when you're constructing your strategic plans and your school renewal plans that, again, not to reinvent the wheel, but to see where there are similarities and to be able to, to not have duplicate efforts.
So then, once you have that, you want to turn your attention to indicators of implementation. So what is going to be our proof or our final product? How do we know that we have followed our action steps, and how do we know that we've been successful? So something you've always heard us preach in federal programs: document, document, document. That hadn't changed. So you want to look at agenda, meeting minutes. You want to look at different projects. You want to look at cohorts. You want to look at observation logs. You want to look at your data. You're going to look at if you have any like MAP scores, any other benchmark tests that are happening throughout the year. You're always wanting to touch base and see how you're doing. You want to evaluate along the way and see how you're getting at meeting your interim goals, and then again, that long range goal. So to do that, you're going to need some action steps. This has also been known before as strategies. So you're going to have to give that action step a title. You're going to have to provide a description with it. You're going to have to tie people to it. Who's going to be responsible for making sure it happens? And you're going to have to set up a time frame. So to give a little more detail on those, some just examples of what an action step title might be: instructional teams, collaborative lesson planning, professional development, data teams. Some examples of what an action step might actually be would be to create a database for instructional math and English websites for students to use. Have an instructional coach meet with science and social studies teachers to brainstorm how to incorporate math and English into lesson plans. So these are just some examples. And then on this next slide, I'm going to show you, here's one specific to student achievement. So if you're under the student achievement category, and we're looking at what we see in our executive summary of the needs assessment, we say that we need to provide teachers with additional instructional resources so that they can increase rigor. So from that need, how do you create a performance goal? The goal would be to provide 100% of core content teachers with additional instructional materials that they can use in their classrooms, and in turn increase achievement on standardized tests. We're wanting to do this over a 5-year period. So what are some action steps to make that goal happen? Purchase iPad apps and other digital programs. Use wireless keyboards with students. Enhance existing classroom libraries. Providing additional resources. Providing manipulatives, those sorts of things. So this is just an example that kind of ties together what we've been saying maybe in the last several slides. And Nicole, you want to jump in here?
I think the only thing I want to just emphasize, be careful with and I know this is just a sample that we came up with. When you're trying to provide 100%, I still do see plans that are unrealistic with respect to their projections for the 5-year cycle of the strategic plans or the school renewal plans. If your baseline is at 10%, 15%, it's very realistic that in 5 years you're going to be at 100%. And so, we want to make sure your strategic plan is not just something that you do because the state says you have to do it, or because the federal government mandates you do it, but we want this to be a tool to help schools and districts be in the business of educating students. And we don't want to be a hindrance to you, but we also want to make sure that it's being used or has ability to be used to be a benefit to you all.
Great. So then we mentioned that you always have to tie people to it as well, like who's going to be responsible. And a lot of times that's going to fall obviously under your instructional team. So the assistant principal for instruction within the school, instructional coaches, anyone in your leadership team, department chairs, and the teachers themselves. And you're always going to have a time frame of 5 years where you're wanting to evaluate each year how you're doing towards meeting that overall goal. A few other elements that fall into the district strategic school renewal plan. If the district is doing a proficiency-based application, that would fall into the submission. Gifted and talented is required to an extent. There is a gifted and talented application that it is, in a perfect world, it's supposed to be submitted in our plan, but it is reviewed by another office from ours, and so they've actually moved their submission date to October. So there's the gifted and talented plan. If you're familiar with that, it is not due April 30th as the district strategic school renewal plan is. There is also a portion in there where we ask if districts and schools are going to be doing a summer school program. We have to identify those sites. And same thing, there's certain assurances that need to be agreed to by the district when they submit the plan. And then also waivers. If there's anything that's going to be an impediment to enacting the district's strategic plan, if there's waivers needed from any of the state regs, those need to be submitted to Sarah Longshore. there is a place on our webpage where you can go and learn more about waivers, and there is a form stack document there that if the district want to apply for a waiver, you can do it on the website. And then Sarah will receive that notification and she'll reach back out to the district to start the process of trying to waive. Nicole, do you have anything to add?
Well, with respect to waivers, there's also waivers to delay the initial 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And I know that this year there are quite a few districts who have 5-year plans due April 30th of this year, which is less than a month from now. If your plan isn't complete at this point, we would suggest that you get those waivers into us as soon as possible. There is still time to request a waiver, and the waiver only delays the 5-year plan. You still have to do an update, which is significantly more simple than having to do the initial plan. And then you can put that new 5-year plan out anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending on your particular circumstance. So if you have not done that initial 5-year plan that's due in a month, please request a waiver via that form stack application that Karen just mentioned.
Yes. And for right now, I have, you see Nicole, Laura, and myself listed as the contacts for this. Many of you may have known Karen Byram. Unfortunately, she retired. She left us March 1st. And so she was another one who had a lot of knowledge and was really good with the district strategic school renewal plans. But I am looking right now to kind of reassign districts. And so once we let the dust settle from Karen retiring, every district is going to have someone on our team that is their contact for district strategic school renewal plans. I'm just in the process of assigning those right now. Once that's completed, everyone will receive an email notification of who their contact is on our team. We also have 2 other team members, Greg King and Rhonda Ray. They have traditionally been on the federal monitoring side, but we're trying to integrate our office and consolidate the efforts of everyone, so everybody's learning all the different elements. And so they are like me, they're more newbies to the district strategic school renewal plans, but some of you may see Greg or Rhonda listed as your contact. We're being trained very well by Nicole and Laura and Karen before she retired. So if you have any questions before you receive who your district contact is, feel free to reach out to any of the 3 of us that you see here on the screen. We'll be glad to assist you until those assignments come out.
We have a question from Becky.
Okay, go ahead.
So Becky's question is my understanding is that the updated plan has to be approved before the waivers can be submitted to the state board, and then add the approved waivers to the plan for the updated approval. So yes and no, Becky. So if you are requesting a waiver just to delay your initial 5-year plan, you can apply for your waiver through the form stack, and Sarah Longshore can actually approve that before it has to go to the board, and then you would just do your update, which is due by April 30th of this year. So, but other kind of waivers, you're right, you do have to update the plan. So let's say, for instance, you have a program and you have 6th graders wishing to have high school credit. So the state regulation says that 6th graders cannot have high school credit. But in your strategic plan, I don't know, in a student achievement, I don't know, you're trying to ensure, I'll just say, I don't know, graduation rate is on time. So you want to make sure students are getting all of their credits. And you have a group of 6th graders who are extremely gifted. And so you're going to say that this regulation 43-32 impedes our district strategic and school renewal plan, and then it has to actually be in your plan, updated by your board, and then you submit the waiver, and then we will determine whether or not it goes to the board or Sarah Longshore can approve it. I am planning to submit a new 5-year plan by Wednesday. I'm not quite sure. I don't quite understand what you're saying, Becky. Maybe we can talk about that afterwards. You've confused me a bit.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, well, this puts us finishing a few minutes early, but maybe everybody can take a quick break before they come back for the sessions that begin at 2 o'clock. Nicole, will you be able to connect with Becky after this session's over and kind of assist her with her question?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. If we don't have any other questions, we thank you for joining us today. We hope you've learned something, or at least got the idea of how you want to approach district strategic school renewal plans and start thinking about it as you plan for next year. And again, we appreciate you being here and hope you enjoy the rest of today and the ESSA Academy.